Hi there, this is Matt, and I just want to take you through the reading list for children's literature through the ages and talk to you about a lot of the changes that I've made to it to make it more accessible. So the first thing to note is this video that you're watching now should always rest just above the reading list so you can watch it, and it'll be a slightly comprehensive overview of me talking through all the books that are there and how you can use them, and the articles too. So when you click on the reading list itself, it will take you to basically the list that is a collection of the literature that I'm going to advise you to look at, whether you're a distance learner working online or whether you're a campus-based learner coming to Oxford Brookes in whatever form that is at the moment, and looking at the literature. Now, more than ever, this last few weeks, I've been slowly going through the entire list and removing a lot of literature that I think would be difficult to get hold of given the current circumstances and might be a little bit dated. And then I've tried to put in a lot more literature that is available online. Now, unfortunately, some of the stuff just isn't available online. It never will be because it's old, but sadly it's very good. Now, a long time ago, a student said to me, how come you're using books that are old and not current? And the answer to that is because no one's written anything current about some of these themes, partly because they can't be bettered, and partly because the people that wrote them need to really kind of update them. But the answer is no. It's children's literature. It's a very niche field in the UK, sadly. Not so in the States. And really, we just need people like Peter Hunt to come back and update these books. So that's really why some of the books will seem old, but their context is excellent. So let's take you through the reading and how to use it. Obviously, all the reading is based on the sessions that you get if you're online. Here's all the online material is in this box. There's another video for that. And then if you're campus based, then it's here. Okay. And often I'll put articles and the like in the shell of the session so you can see it there. Really, this is mainly here for supporting you with your own assignment reading and also bringing some original thought into the sessions as well. So the way that I've laid out the entire reading list this time is a lot more structured. So you have your core reading for the assignment. Really, this could just be called core reading and it would make the same case for why they're there. Then you've got the set reading that is specifically children's books that I'll go through. And then you've got a big bracket of reading called the Literary Theory and Critical Text on Children's Literature. And you can see that they all come under this main heading, Literary Theory and Critical Text on Children's Literature. But as you scroll down, within this frame are subframes. So Society, Gender and Family, Multiculturalism, Traditional Tales, and Fantasy. And then finally, a historical perspective. And then at the end, there's a different section called Authors and Their Critics. And that's it. So this is a lot more organised than I used to have it. And a lot of this is me rethinking about how to support you if you're a distance learner with limited access to resources. That's a lot of what we're doing here. But also, it allows you to see the shape of the assignment and the shape of the module. So let's go through these first 6 texts here and what I mean by core reading for the assignment. So really, I should add as a disclaimer, by the way, that when you come to look at the reading list in January, mid-January, this may have changed a little bit. And that's because I might find a new text that I want to add in, or it might be that one of the speakers has a book that they want us to explore, and so I have to add that, or I have to remove it because a speaker can't turn up. And it's quite a kind of malleable, flexible thing, the reading list. But really, the structure, these headings, will not change, and that's the main thing to take away. And neither really will the core reading here. So the core reading is based on you knowing two things. One is where the books that you're going to explore sit within a historical perspective, and where they sit within an ideological one. So what ideas they hold about politics, society and culture. And really that's the central theme of the assignment. The assignment asks you to look and compare two different books, preferably written from two different time periods, but they don't have to be. And what we're doing is we're comparing what they are saying ideologically, maybe about society or politics or culture, and within those subheadings, maybe about gender or race or loss. Many themes really. That's what you choose to explore, and that's why the reading list is quite a lengthy one, even though I've trimmed it down a lot. So knowing that it is a historical and ideological overview that you're looking at, that's why in the core text I've put probably the best books that explore those two areas: the history of children's literature and the ideology behind children's literature. So within the history of children's literature, really, I've only given you two books. And out of those two books, really, there's only one you really need to consider trying to get hold of. If it's too expensive, don't worry too much about it. There's so much online at the moment that there's other ways around finding the information that you need. So one is Kimberly Reynolds' Children's Literature, Very Short Introduction. You can see I recommend that rather than say it's essential. And there are three reference points that you can use here throughout the whole reading list as to how important these books are. There is essential, which means I really advise you to read it. But within the current context, if getting hold of that book is difficult, try not to worry too much about it. There's other ways around it. Recommended is it could be that additional aid for you in understanding a text ideologically or historically. And then another one is optional. And most of the texts after the core texts are optional because they might prove of no interest to you depending on what you write about. For instance, if one of the books below is about feminism and you're choosing to look at loss, then there's no point in you reading that book unless it is of interest. But I wouldn't recommend it, and I wouldn't say it was essential. So do have a look through these kind of headings here to see what their purpose is. And the other thing I've done for the first time this year is I've written comprehensive overviews of everything, absolutely everything, and what they contain, and sometimes what chapters are important over others. So that's to give us a kind of more of a flavour of what each book is doing. And I've also this year tried to make sure that everything is available via Brooks in some way, for the most part. So Kimberly's book is very short and concise. Peter's book is longer. It's a bit older, but it is the best book that gives us an introduction to children's literature in history, and the history of children's literature too. So those two books kind of ground us in the story of children's literature, really, from its very beginnings to, I think, the turn of the 21st century, really, just about maybe with the Peter Hunt, but certainly with Kimberly's book, it's there. And then you've got the other section, which is ideology. Now, if you did Reading for Pleasure with me, the other module, then you've already got a good grounding of ideological thought and thinking. John Stevens' book is excellent, but we only have physical copies in the library. I'm looking into that as I record this video. And also, it might be too expensive. So don't worry, there's other books that are far more affordable, and they're all written by Peter Hollindale. And you can see that one of the books is here, The Hidden Teacher, Peter Hollindale, and that's published by Thimble Press, and I've put a link in here for you to get hold of it. You could try other, Abe books and things like that, try and get it for cheap. It's not a very big book, so I can't imagine it's going to cost a lot of money. And then the other book I wanted you to buy was Ideology in the Children's Book, because it's a great essay on ideology. But I found it within Peter Hunt's Literature for Children, which is an electronic book. So you can click on this and you can see that it says available online. So you can view online. I'm just going to open it in a new tab just in case it didn't do that. And when you come here, I've got to hopefully just refresh and it will work. I was on it yesterday, so I know it absolutely works. There we go. And when you come to read online or to download the book, I think I say what chapter it is here, the very first chapter. I should say that the rest of the book is excellent as well. But if we go to the contents page here, you will see that it says here, Ideology, Peter Holiday, Ideology in a children's book published in 1988. All of these are very good, by the way. Very, very good. But you can see that that's really the main thing that I wanted you to read. So I've already saved us some time and some money by finding an electronic version within the library catalogue. And the other book that's excellent and supports the Ideology in a children's book is Signs of Childness in Children's Books, which we look at both online and in the campus-based sessions. But that's a recommended book. I've said that this one's recommended, and I mean the book, but the ebook itself, as in the chapter on ideology, is probably essential. So really, that's the core reading for the book. They're kind of, some of these are books I'm going to expect to see cited and referenced in your essay in some way, if they end up being relevant. For instance, a history of children's literature might not be relevant if you're a student working from China and you're looking at Chinese culture. Well, then these books don't touch on that at all, and this has happened in the past. There have been excellent essays on it, but you might be looking at traditional tales in China and how they've been rewritten. So actually, the Hunt might not be of value at all. The ideology will be, always. And then we've got, in the next section, the children's books for set reading. And you can see that this year, it won't make any difference to you, but this year I've changed it because some of the speakers have moved on. And so I've got new speakers in, and also I've changed with the times and kept kind of refreshed what we're expected to read. So you can see that I've said that sometimes the reading here, especially children's book set reading, can be slightly different if you're learning the course from a distance, whether that's through self-isolation or whether that's through the fact that you're in Singapore. And there's a difference between both. So you can see that Clever Polly and The Stupid Wolf is a book only for the students that are learning from a distance. And it goes with, I think it's session 5, and it says it here. Okay, so there's a task that you have to do around the book, and I advise you to get it. You might have a local library that has it electronically, and if so, great, make the most of that. And then the next 2 books are part of Nick Swarbrick's Steering the Craft session, and they are only for campus-based students. And I know Nick wants you to have read them before the session begins. I think the session begins sometime in October, but he's hoping you will have read them sometime in February, sorry. So he's hoping you'll have read them by then, or March. When we've finished, and in another video, there'll be a calendar that goes through all of that. And then for the final session of the campus-based module, but also for the online module, is you are comparing Little Women, which wasn't written in 2014 at all, with a graphic novel that was written in 2019 called Meg Jo, Beth and Amy. And it used to be we did 2 different books, but I recently read the graphic novel and loved it so much that I thought it would make for a very good comparison. And actually, doing this puts into place everything that this module is trying to do, which is comparing 2 texts from different periods of time and looking at what they're saying about something. So in this one, this is a feminist reading of Little Women and Meg Jo, Beth and Amy, and maybe what it's saying about feminism, how it's changed over time, because they're both American based, and having a look at that. So it should be really interesting. It's the first time that's run. So we've got the children's books you're expected to read if you're a distance learner, or whether you're on campus, or whether you're both. That's for both of you. And then you've got the core reading. Everything afterwards is circumstantial to your assignment, and it's wholly dependent on what you choose to explore. But I thought I'd collate what I think is the best of each of these categories that I've read so far. So I've read all of these at some point in my life, and I've put them here because I think they're good. They're a good foundation for you if you end up choosing to explore that aspect. So first is literary theory and critical text and children's literature. They kind of support those core texts that I mentioned earlier on. And as you can see, as much as I can, Little Women, by the way, is available online through Brooks to Read. As much as I can, I've made them online. I've found as much as I can that's online and removed as much as I can that is not, just to kind of make sure we don't panic too much. But as I said earlier, these are all optional, even if it says recommended like this. That is an exception, actually. So there's no point kind of explaining these ones really, because hopefully the blurb beneath will explain it for you. And I've always tried to highlight whether it's an ebook or not so you can read it online. But there'll be descriptions underneath about what they're doing. So it's for you to look through and go, I can see that's going to be useful. But also when you give me your plans later on in the module, I'll be able to say, hey, you really should read Kimberly Reynolds' Modern Children's Literature because there's a really good chapter there on Harry Potter and you're interested in looking at Harry Potter, for example. And then beneath that are several subsections. So we've got society, gender and family, which is often a common area that students look at and compare. And again, you can see that I've tried to keep as many online as possible. And then there's only a few that are not online. One is an article, so that is online because it's an article. And then there's these 3 books. Of these 3 books, I've got to say that Pat Pinsent's Children's Literature and the Politics of Quality is great. But it might be that I look through and look at certain chapters and see if they're worth sharing. If you end up doing a multicultural reading, then these texts are fantastic. And again, I've tried to make sure that some are online. Thank you to the library for making that happen. If you're going to look at traditional, retellings of traditional tales or novels that do a spin on a traditional tale, then these 4 texts are a great foundation for you to work from. If you choose to do fantasy, whether it's domestic fantasy like Lewis's Narnia books, or whether it's high fantasy like anything Tolkien's The Hobbit, for example, then I would argue that these first 2 books are outstanding support, especially this one by Catherine Butler. And then Jane Carroll's looks at landscape. I wanted to put that there because really she has a very fantastical slant on it. And then you've got, again, children's literature in history. And the reason these 2 books are here, Written for Children and Secret Gardens, is because I didn't want to put them up here and make it look like you've got too much reading to do. But they would have supported, and they do support these 2 books very nicely. But it's there as an addition rather than a requirement, really. So that's why they're kind of tagged in at the end. And then you've got the other side of the thing, which is forget the ideology and forget the history. What about the person that's written the book? And what about criticisms about their writing and things like that? And that's what this final section is. And you can see that these 4 are journals or magazines. And the Lion and Unicorn is probably the best children's literature journal out there that critiques children's literature, whether it's authors or whether it's their work. Books for Keeps does great reviews of books, which is super, but also they have a section most months called Authorgraphs, where they do very insightful and in-depth interviews with a lot of children's authors. And often you gain an ideological understanding of where they're coming from in some of their thinking. So that's definitely worth chasing up. These last 2, I've written here what they do. The thing with the Children's Literature Association Quarterly is, as far as I know, we've only got physical copies of that journal. I was reluctant to put it on, but it is such a good journal that, I want it there just in case you can find a link and just in case there's a way for us to be able to get those articles to you in some way. As you can see, these 3 are all online, as is Philip Pullman's Demon Voices, which is a lovely essay on story writing and authors and and the choices writers make. And then, although not online, the Oxford Companion to Children's Literature is excellent and again gives insightful, in-depth overviews and biographies of lots of authors and their work. And really, that's it. A lot of the assignment is shaped by the books that you choose to look at. And this whole reading list will begin to make a lot more sense to you when you've chosen a text that you want to look through. But I want you to use this and start dipping into this as soon as possible, really, especially any that are online that you think you might be interested in. And certainly begin to read the children's books that are your set reading, so that you can engage with the course, whether it's online or campus-based, in a more kind of informed way, really. So that's it. I hope you got as much as you could from the overview of the reading list. Thanks very much.